When a country's economy crashes, its most reliable defense mechanism is its own money. Having an independent, sovereign currency gives a government an emergency escape hatch when things go wrong. It's a process called devaluation. If an economy is collapsing, the central bank can devalue its national currency, lowering its value compared to the rest of the world. Suddenly, the goods that country produces are drastically cheaper to foreign buyers. Exports spike, factories get back to work, and the economy jumpstarts its own recovery. But at the turn of the millennium, 20 independent European nations chose to walk away from that defensive option. They decommissioned their individual currencies, essentially removing their primary way to stabilize an economy in freefall. Through a massive political and economic integration, they bound their economies together and adopted a single shared currency, the euro. By willingly erasing their national money, these countries erased their ability to devalue it during a crisis, giving up their most powerful macroeconomic safety net. To understand the massive risk of that decision, we have to look at the worst-case scenario for any shared currency, an asymmetric shock. Imagine a sudden drop in demand for French goods. Factories close, unemployment rises, and France's economic indicators plummet into the red. At the exact same time, Germany experiences the opposite. Demand for German goods is skyrocketing, their industries are booming, and their economy is surging. This creates an impossible math problem for the European Central Bank. To save France, the bank needs to cut interest rates to stimulate spending. But if they do that, the booming German economy will overheat and trigger massive inflation. The single central bank cannot serve these two competing needs at once. And France cannot rely on the old strategy of devaluing the franc to make its exports cheaper. The franc doesn't exist anymore. A struggling nation is effectively trapped, with no independent monetary tools to engineer a recovery. So why would any country willingly accept this massive risk? The answer comes down to where the pain and the payoffs live. The risks of a shared currency are macroeconomic, and they typically only appear during rare crises. The benefits are microeconomic, and they happen every single day. Look back at how European business operated decades ago. If a company in Italy wanted to buy parts from Spain, sell to Germany, and hire consultants in France, they had to constantly exchange lira, pesetas, marks, and francs, paying steep bank fees at every step. Adopting a single currency wiped out that friction entirely. Eliminating those foreign exchange costs saves the European economy up to 0.5% of its total GDP every year. It also created instant price transparency. When a product costs 10 euros in Portugal and 15 euros in Belgium, consumers notice immediately. That forces companies to compete across borders, driving down prices for everyone. And without the fear that a neighboring country's currency might suddenly drop in value and wipe out profits, businesses can safely make massive, long-term investments across the continent. The euro acts as a daily lubricant for the continent. For nations whose economies rely heavily on trade, these daily efficiencies compound over time, generating immense wealth. The euro's architects designed the currency to exert influence far beyond European borders, intending it to function as a global heavyweight. This chart tracks global foreign exchange reserves. Looking at the blue line, you can see that the euro quickly captured over 20% of official global holdings, firmly establishing itself as an international reserve currency. When other countries hold your money in their central banks, it creates a phenomenon known as seigniorage. In short, it allows the European government to borrow money much more easily and profit directly from the widespread international use of its cash. It also established a massive financial backstop, the European Central Bank. In a systemic panic, this massive institution acts as a lender of last resort, with the power to create unlimited liquidity to keep the European banking system afloat. So, Europe traded 20 individual emergency shields for daily economic efficiency and immense global financial power. The math works beautifully, until a localized crisis hits. Economists measure the survival odds of a shared money system using the theory of optimal currency areas, or OCA. This theory outlines exactly what a region needs to survive a major economic shock without tearing itself apart. First, it requires massive labor mobility. If France is in a recession and Germany is booming, unemployed French workers need to easily pack up and move to Germany to find jobs. Second, it demands highly flexible wages. Without the ability to simply devalue their currency, Workers in the depressed nation have to accept deep, painful pay cuts to make their industries competitive again. But asking an entire population to take a pay cut is incredibly difficult. That brings us to the third and most crucial requirement, a centralized insurance mechanism, usually in the form of a giant federal budget. Here is the harsh reality of the European Union. It does not have the kind of massive central treasury required to automatically bail out a member state in freefall. While a federal government like the United States controls a massive portion of the national economy to redistribute wealth during a crisis, the European budget makes up barely 1% of the EU's total GDP. Without a giant public safety net, Europe has to rely heavily on private financial integration. The hope is that citizens across the Union buy each other stocks and corporate bonds, absorbing the economic pain together when one nation stumbles. When the euro launched, many economists warned that Europe didn't actually meet these strict requirements. But proponents relied on the endogeneity theory, the idea that simply adopting a shared currency would naturally force these nations to integrate their economies and banking sectors over time. The euro is a profound economic gamble. By trading their ultimate macroeconomic safety nets for daily microeconomic efficiency, these nations locked themselves into a system where standing still is impossible. To survive their own currency, they have no choice but to keep integrating.